Our next speaker is a name that I love, Menios Papadimitriou. He's a historian of religion specializing in Orthodox Christianity and serves as Director of Archives for the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America, where he oversees its major historical collections since his appointment to the post by Archbishop Elpidoforos of America in 2022. Academically, he is affiliated with the Department of Theology of Fordham University, where he works to explore the history of religion in the modern era. He has previously worked at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and Harvard University, and has most recently served as a visiting professor at Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology. Through his commitment to learning, public engagement, and innovative scholarship, he works to ensure that the legacy of American Greek Orthodox communities continue to speak to and inspire future generations. There's a more comprehensive bio in your book. Please take a look at it, and we now would like to welcome Menios Papadimitriou to the podium.
So it's a privilege to be in a room with a community that values vision and one that values building a legacy, and furthermore, one that values that legacy does not preserve itself. Each of you in here has built something: businesses, companies, families, parishes, and we understand that the reputations of things carry weight, not only in business, family, but especially in the wider Hellenic and Orthodox world that we find ourselves in. The Greek American and the Greek Orthodox story in this country is one of extraordinary achievement. Immigrants arrived with very little capital, but immense faith. They built parishes, churches, many times with their own hands. And they became, these parishes, anchors of our identity, of our community, and of our very faith. They created businesses that now employ thousands of people. They created innovation in science, in academia, in all industry. They established philanthropic networks, schools, cultural institutions, and these command respect not only in our own community, but in all places in the United States. This morning, I want to introduce you to a very valuable asset of our Archdiocese. It's the oldest department in the Archdiocese. In some ways, it predates the Archdiocese. It's the archives. The archives, what is that? It's in many ways a very misunderstood part of our Archdiocese. It's fundamentally the memory of our institution. It's the custodian of our community's story, the guardian. It's the vault of our history. So, the archive is the world's most widely used, preeminent research center for the study of Orthodox Christianity in America and its global impact. This is a global institution, the Archdiocese, I mean by that, with global impact. The archive itself is recognized internationally, and the center provides acquisition, conservation of important primary source materials that chronicle the histories that people come in to study. If you're familiar with the scholar Spyros Vryonis, he wrote many books, but a very important book called The Decline of Medieval Hellenism in Asia Minor. When he came into the archive, I think in the 90s, he was a very tough to please, very persnickety scholar, and from what I'm told by many people, he bragged about the Archdiocesan archives, that they're the most professional, well-built center for learning and research that he had ever encountered in his career. Now for Vryonis, he was a tough personality, so that's a real compliment for our community. So what's in there? Let me show you. Boxes. In these boxes is an extensive collection, things that span from the 17th century to the contemporary time. The oldest object that we have is a 17th century antimencion, hand-painted. It was produced in Lefkada and all the way up to today. So we span about 300 years in terms of chronology. The treasures in our vault really bridge centuries, continents, and we safeguard them to ensure that they transcend the passage of time. These boxes that you see here are special acid-free. They're meant to prevent the decay of documents and the objects that are stored therein. These two individuals are two of our interns that served in various summers through the Leadership 100 internship grant. The gentleman on the left, Nick, he's now pursuing a history PhD at the University of Notre Dame, and he's working on actually the work of Spiros Skouras and Archbishop Athenagoras in international foreign policy and intelligence. On the right is Annie. She is in law school at Fordham University. Both of them received full scholarships, and they learned a lot in the archives that enabled them to progress in their professional careers, both in history and outside of it. So these are some examples of the things that we keep in the boxes. On the left, you might not believe it, but that's the first Archbishop of America, dressed as he would be going out for his professional engagements. This structure here, that is the first archdiocese building in Astoria. It was not a very nice building. It housed not only the offices of the archdiocese, the press, which produced this, the Ecclesiastikos Kyrix, the first newspaper of the archdiocese that started around 1918. It also contained the first theological school. You can see very faintly at the top of the photo in handwritten, it says Skoli Agiou Athanasiou, 1922. That was the first envisioned seminary for the training of locally trained American Orthodox clergy. We were here till about 1944 until we purchased 10 East 79th Street, which moved the archdiocese from this rather rickety building in Astoria in the midst of the aristocracy of America. This document here on the right is something like our Constitution. It's the establishing founding document of the Archdiocese, signed at the bottom by the Patriarch Meletios IV at the time, and all of the sitting members of the Synod who passed the act. The next act after the creation of the Archdiocese, similar thing with a wax seal on it, was the election of the first Archbishop of America. In blue, you'll see the first Archdiocesan seal. And so this is really kind of the earliest ephemera and documentation related to the Archdiocese's history. The current infrastructure of the Archdiocesan Archive was created by this lovely woman on the left here, Nikki Calais. Many of you, I'm sure, have had the opportunity to meet her. Nikki graduated from St. Basil's Academy from the Teachers College. This is her graduation photo from the yearbook. And in the early 2000s, she was charged with taking the archive, which was at that time lots of file cabinets that were in the cellar of the Archdiocese, and turning them into a real archive, a scholarly, properly formed archive. And she did that with the help of Leadership 100. About $700,000 were granted to the Archdiocesan Archives between the years 2000 and 2008, I believe. And also the Stavros Niarchos Foundation. Nikki built the entire archive with a team of people employed by the grant and gave us what we have today, and it is really nothing short of a miracle what she produced. So what goes on in there? So you can see here, this is one of the research rooms in our archive. Historians come and they write our history. History doesn't write itself. The archive isn't just kind of a Google terminal where we have a question and we, just type it into a terminal and it generates the answer. We have to go digging through these boxes and we have to find out information and piece them together in narrative form. This gentleman here was from Italy. He was working on a particular historical project for about 3 months. Every single day for 3 months, he would come in, look at the boxes that dealt with the subject of his inquiry, and he would sit at this desk continuously all day long from the time we opened till the time we closed. These are other scholars that have come in the last year and worked on our archives. Professional scholars, professors, leaders of center. We have in the middle in the blue, Professor Maria Kaliambu from Yale. On the left, Professor Tom Papadimitriou from Stockton. Many of you know Professor Alex Kitroff, who produced the most recent volume on the history of the Archdiocese. We also have students. In the middle, we have Vasiliki Rousakis, who did her undergraduate thesis at Berkeley. We have Mrs. Walsh, I forgot her first name, Julia Walsh, who did her also her thesis on Ionian Village and the Greek camping ministries. Father John Chrysavis, Dr. Skedros, various people come in and they spend lots of time creating the stories that we read, piecing together the data that they extract from the primary sources. We also have field trips. Students come in. This is a group that came from Queens College last spring, and we had this fun moment where they reproduced a photo that was taken in 1945 with Archbishop Athenagoras with Bishop Athenagoras. We kind of melded them together. On the bottom here, you see the progression of the archdiocesan seals over the years. Part of the archives isn't just stuffy scholarly work and writing articles that few people read. We also try to support our parish communities insofar as possible, writing their histories for their centennials and major anniversaries, finding out important information. Is your parish consecrated? Anything you can really imagine in terms of historical preservation. We're expanding those capabilities as we go along, but these are things that depend on the parish's engagement. We also provide kind of expert intelligence to various news outlets. This was my debut on Greek TV. And so an important aspect of the archive is acquisition. This, in the last several days, Cassandra Romas provided this fantastic photograph to Archbishop Elpidoforos from her private collection. This is a really important photo. It's probably the youngest photo I've seen of Archbishop Athenagoras during his time here in America. And what this points to is this idea that we have lots of photos, resources, pieces of history that are scattered throughout the Archdiocese in people's homes, in parishes, and we need to make a concerted effort to continue to collect these things and make sure they're not lost. The archive, as I said, we're the guardians of cultural heritage, and we recognize this profound impact. And there's no interruptions in history. Time does not stop moving. But the documentation of the achievement, the records, the correspondence, photographs, decisions about founding moments, these things are scattered all over the place, but they're very valuable and vulnerable. And in many cases, they are at risk of disappearing completely. We can't accept this as a community of our stature. The archive isn't just nostalgia, it's not trivia, it's the infrastructure of our memory, our institutional memory, and that gives organizations credibility. It's the source of material, like I said, for scholarship, exhibitions, public recognition, evidence of our leadership, philanthropy, and impact in this country and globally. It's the foundation of the legacy that outlives any one generation of the many that are in this room. You as leaders, you understand the difference between expense and investment, and supporting archival preservation and expansion is an investment in the permanence and ensuring the contributions of our community are not lost. Universities, corporations, all kinds of institutions, they have important archives that do this work. So our community deserves nothing less. So in this next era, this next 100 years of the Archdiocese, we really need to move beyond passive preservation into active acquisition, expansion, and really a more systematic gathering of materials that are scattered throughout the country. And these are important. Why? Because of the story. The storytelling is the key. I'll give you an interesting story that I recently heard. There's a man who did an experiment. He bought 200 items on eBay, nothing more than $1. Then he phoned 200 prominent journalists from around the country, and he said, "Do you want to participate in the Important Object Story project?" And each one agreed, and they produced a story about why this object was very important. Then he turned around and he put those items up for auction. He paid no more than $200 for all these 200 items, and at auction, he sold them collectively for $80,000. The story gave these things value. So our story is what gives the archival items value. These aren't inherently valuable things in themselves, but when they're affixed to the story, an authority affixes to them. And it's very important because if we don't tell our stories, other people will. The magisterial text, The Greeks in the United States by Theodore Salutos, has 2 solid chapters on the history of development of the Archdiocese. Now, if you thumb to the back of the footnotes in that, Salutos has a little note. There's no footnote citing any primary source from the institutional church, not in America, Greece, or Constantinople. And he has a little note sandwiched between 2 chapter footnotes, and it says, I was unable to access any primary sources from the Archdiocese, or the Constantinople Patriarchate, or the Church of Greece. But he wrote 3 chapters that are profoundly influential with no citations about the history of the early church in America. So this is problematic. And he's a member of our community who was not very sympathetic in his view toward the church in his publication. So these are important things to consider. Not only tell the stories, but encourage scholars to engage these sources. In the United States, we have very few scholars of endowed chairs who focus on Orthodox Christianity. Outside seminaries, I think there's less than 5 scholars with endowed chairs that focus on our tradition. Compare that to our friends in the Roman Catholic Church or the Jewish community, where every school has many, many endowed chairs. Harvard University, Yale, Chicago, Stanford, no endowed chairs in Orthodox Christian history or studies at these schools. Of course, we have Byzantine and classical Greek, but nothing related to our faith tradition. I want to close. I could go on for this all day long, and it would be very fun for me and probably not so fun for you, so I'm going to try to wrap it up. So the last thing I want to point here, right, this is after the Eucharist, this idea of preservation, of the legacy that we share. This is not just an opportunity for philanthropy, but something that we must do as a community to preserve our tradition, to make sure that they're passed on, and the generation that comes afterward that we pass these things on to understands the importance of continuing that work, of passing it on and making sure it goes down the line. And there's a theological point here. Each time we gather to celebrate the Eucharist, we enact the sacramental reality of our connection to one another. And all Orthodox Christians throughout the globe, not just the living, but the dead, but also those in the future who are yet to come. This is a profound mystery. This is the sacramental mystery that we meditate on. Pericles said, Imnimi isi uk esti ton stilon monon epigraphi, esti ve ton andron mnimi. That's classical Greek, English. What you leave behind, the memory, is not only that which is engraved on the stone monuments, but it's the memory of humanity. That was Pericles again. So our traditions only survive because people of conviction like you choose to protect, to sustain, and to pass these things forward. And your commitment to this ensures that the faith, the traditions, the memory that remains guarded alive for those who follow us.